I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. I'm Jefferson Hendricks, Chair of the English Department. Tonight is the 30th annual presentation of the John William Corrington Award for Literary Excellence. It is presented by the Department of English at Centenary on behalf of the Centenary student body and faculty to an established, critically acknowledged writer. The award honors a Centenary English major from the 1950s, Bill Corrington, who was at different times in his life an English professor, an attorney in private practice, and with his wife Joyce, the scriptwriter for several films and television series, including Search for Tomorrow, General Hospital, and Santa Barbara. A prolific poet, he also published 4 novels, 2 novellas, 3 collections of short stories, many of which are set in Shreveport and Northwest Louisiana. Each fall, the entire first-year class of the college reads a book by the Corrington winner. In 1991, Eudora Welty became the first recipient of the award when she read her short story, A Worn Path, at Centenary's spring commencement. The award takes the form of a bronze medal designed by the internationally exhibited Louisiana sculptor Clyde Connell. A presentation box, a work of art in its own right, has been handmade by Professor Emeritus of Art Bruce Allen and English Professor Steve Shelburne. It houses the medal. I would like to thank those who have made this award possible. First, without the financial generosity of the Corrington and Attaway families, tonight would not happen. We'd be home watching Netflix or something. And many thanks go to President Chris Holloman, Provost Karen Soule, the Convocation Committee, and the members of the English Department, who have all supported this award in numerous necessary ways. Before I introduce Professor Emily Lighthouser, who will introduce our Corrington Award winner for 2019, Jericho Brown, there is one other thank you.
David, I actually, like my colleagues, have multiple thank yous. I want to thank you first for bringing the great Louisiana writer Ernest Gaines here very early in the Corrington tradition. And I have a special personal thanks for bringing Richard Bausch, who taught me more in 1 hour about how short stories work than I've learned in the rest of my career. Thank you.
enlivened our campus, and it was very exciting when I ran into him at the San Francisco airport a couple years later. Thank you for that.
David, I want to thank you for bringing Richard Wilbur.
Anthony Hecht, who's one of my favorite poets, even though I wasn't here to see it, and in my first year last year, bringing Charles Baxter. That was a wonderful experience, so thank you.
David, I want to thank you for bringing the late, great James Dickey, author of the novel Deliverance and many great poems, here to campus for this award.
And David, I would like to thank you for bringing Welty and Paul Muldoon and C.K. Williams and Eleanor Wilner and many, many other wonderful writers to Centenary as the founder, the architect, and the organizer for this award over the past 30 years. And for this reason, the English department would like to present you tonight with your own personal John William Corrington Award for services to literature, comparable to the, Steve Shelburne?
Order of the British Empire.
While we can't knight you, I'll buy you a beer later sometime. And you get your own medal and box.
This is a total surprise.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, I am speechless. This has been a real ordeal, which I didn't do alone. First of all, I mean, without the support of my colleagues, this award very definitely wouldn't have continued. And of course, without my wife, Ashley, who is an award-winning poet and novelist herself, I certainly would not have been able to do what really has been, I have to say, a labor of love. And I'm delighted, of course, that my colleagues are perpetuating it. So thank you all very, very much. I'm sincerely grateful, beyond words.
At this time, I would like to also present to the 2019 winner of the John William Corrington Award for Literary Excellence in the great tradition that David has initiated and sustained here. Obviously, this goes to Jericho Brown, but Professor Lighthouser would like to say a few words first about Jericho, and then we can present the award.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Lighthouser, and on behalf of the English department here at Centenary, thank you for coming to this reading by our distinguished guest and Corrington winner, Dr. Jericho Brown. He comes to us today as a professor and director of the Creative Writing Program at Emory University. This is Dr. Brown's second time reading at Centenary, and I imagine that those of you who were here when he first visited are thrilled to welcome him back. Dr. Brown is a Shreveport native whose third and most recent book, The Tradition, many of you have been reading and studying in your classes. For those of you who have not read The Tradition, prepare to be dazzled tonight. The New York Times praises these poems which, quote, even in their most searing moments, are resilient out of necessity, faithful to their account of survival, when survival is the hardest task of all. And recent U.S. Poet Laureate Tracy K. Smith writes, these astounding poems by Jericho Brown don't merely hold up a lens to the world and watch from a safe distance. They run or roll or stomp their way into what matters, loss, desire, rage, becoming, and stay there until something necessary begins to make sense. Dr. Brown is the recipient of many honors and awards, including a Whiting Award and fellowships from the John Simon Guggenheim Foundation, the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study at Harvard University, and the National Endowment for the Arts. His first book, Please, won the American Book Award, and his second book, The New Testament, the Anisfeld Wolf Book Award. Dr. Brown's poems have been published in The New Yorker, The New York Times, The New Republic, and Time, along with several of the best American poetry anthologies. The book we're celebrating in particular tonight, The Tradition, has recently been longlisted for the National Book Award in Poetry. Over the years, Dr. Brown's poetry has developed and taken new paths, and yet remained distinctively his own. Reading his latest book, I am struck again and again, not only by the formal virtuosity, but by the way these poems urge us to resist the seductions of safety. These poems are about risks on every scale, both literal and figurative, both individual and national. For those of you in Trek, you'll remember when you read Allegory of the Cave that one of the most important themes is examining your received assumptions and beliefs. To my mind, there is no better book than the tradition to invite us to do the terrifying and exhilarating work of scrutinizing what we believe. Some of you may remember from our Trek colloquium that epistemology is the study of knowledge. For Dr. Brown, poems test our epistemological limits, or the limits of what we think we know. Poetry is not a place to express belief, but to discover it. As Dr. Brown has written, quote, "I should remind everyone who knows me that I do not believe that poems are made of our beliefs. Instead, I believe poems lead us to and tell us what we really believe." On a personal note, I am delighted to host Jericho Brown. When I was doing my doctoral work at Emory, I had the pleasure of learning from Jericho, who mentored and supported me when I taught in the creative writing program, and as I began taking the next steps in my career leading to Centenary. I have seen firsthand how his energy, magnetism, intelligence, irreverence, and humor have improved the lives of those around him. And now you all at Centenary get a chance to experience this amazing writer in person. For those of you who have read Dr. Brown's book but have not heard him read, I think you'll find, as I do, that the poems, which are beautiful on the page, further blossom when read aloud. It is a great pleasure to have Jericho Brown back here at Centenary. Please join me in welcoming him. Here's the award.
Thank you.
I'll try not to trip.
Wait, look, they give you an award and it's all tied up, so you don't know if it's real. It's like it's telling you you could be dreaming. Thank y'all so much. This means a great deal to me. I really appreciate it, and it comes from the perfect place because it comes from Centenary. I'm a graduate. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of it, but I'm a graduate of a high school called C.E. Byrd High School. Do y'all know anything about that? I'm from here. My grandmother raised all of us pretty much in Cedar Grove, Louisiana, and then we lived in other parts of Shreveport as well. And no matter what, I would always find myself passing Centenary on the street. And the fact of being able to pass the college would remind me where I was trying to go. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate Centenary for being here, and thank you, Emily, so much for that introduction. It means the world to me, and I love seeing you with your own students here at Centenary. It makes me feel like I'm some kind of a granddad, so it's nice, it's nice. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jeff Hendricks. Thank you, David Haddard. Thank you to my best friend from preschool, middle school, high school, Aya Deli Anderson, who made it here. Thank you so much for being here, Aya. I'm gonna read you a few poems, is that okay? Y'all all right with that? Y'all good with that? Okay. I'll read you.
Afterwards, a little commercial break.
Oh.
We will have books down if anyone is interested in getting Jericho to sign them. You may have your own already, but we have others for those that are joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll sign your books, but you have to buy one. And you're welcome. Hey, can I say this thing about buying the book? You do not have to like the poems in order to buy the book. I'm serious about this because, and there's a reason why. There's a reason why. It's because I have the best book cover on any book of poetry ever. So literally you can buy it because you want something to put on your coffee table, or because you want an excuse to buy a coffee table. Where I'm from, we always begin with prayer, so. Prayer of the backhanded. Not the palm, not the pear tree switch, not the broomstick, nor the closest extension cord, not his braided belt, but God, bless the back of my daddy's hand, which, holding nothing tightly against me and not wrapped in leather, eliminated the air between itself and my cheek. Make full this dimpled cheek unworthy of its unfisted print, and forgive my forgetting the love of a hand hungry for reflex, a hand that took no thought of its target, like hail from a blind sky, involuntary, fast, but brutal in its bruising. Father, I bear the bridge of what might have been a broken nose. I lift to you what was a busted lip. Bless the boy who believes his best beatings lack intention, the mark of the beast. Bring back to life the son who glories in the sin of immediacy, calling it love. God, save the man whose arm, like an angel's invisible wing, may fly backward in fury, whether or not his son stands near. Help me hold in place my blazing jaw as I think to say, excuse me. Much of what I'm doing in thank you, much of what I do when I'm writing poems is I try to make use of the vernacular and the language that I heard when I was growing up in Shreveport, Louisiana. I grew up here, and when I left here, I lived in New Orleans, Louisiana for almost 10 years. Then I lived in Houston, Texas. So I spent most of my life, what's Houston, Texas? I spent most of my life in this radius that was very southern. And then I moved out to San Diego, California, which is where I found out that I have an accent. And when I was in San Diego, there were all these words and phrases that I would make use of, and people had no idea what I was talking about because they were words that were not in the dictionary. And this, the title of this next poem is a title built after based off of a phrase that I heard when I was living in New Orleans, and I think what that phrase means will become clear to you as you hear the poem. 40 in the morning. My mother grew morning glories that spilled onto the walkway toward her porch because she was a woman with land who showed as much by giving it color. She told me I could have whatever I worked for. That means she was an American. But she'd say it was because she believed in God. I am ashamed of America and confounded by God. I thank God for my citizenship in spite of the timer set on my life to write these words. I love my mother. I love black women who plant flowers as sheepish as their sons. By the time the blooms unfurl themselves for a few hours of light, the women who tend them are already at work. Blue, I'll never know who started the lie that we are lazy, but I'd love to wake that bastard up at 40 in the morning, toss him in a truck, and drive him under God past every bus stop in America to see all those black folk waiting to go work for whatever they want. A house, a boy to keep the lawn cut, some color in the yard. My God, we leave things green. Y'all are welcome to clap after every poem, but I'm only reading for 5 hours. So you can wait till the end to clap. labor. I spent what light Saturday sent sweating and learned to cuss, cutting grass for women kind enough to say they couldn't tell the damn difference between their mowed lawns and their vacuumed carpets, just before handing over a $5 bill rolled tighter than a joint and asking me in to change a few light bulbs. I called those women old because they wouldn't move out of a chair without my help or walk without a hand at the base of their backs. I called them old, and they must have been. They're all dead now, dead and in the earth I once tended. The loneliest people have the earth to love, and not one friend their own age, only mothers to baby them, and big sisters to boss them around. Women you want to please, and pray for the chance to say please to. I don't do that kind of work anymore. My job is to look at the childhood I hated and say, I once had something to do with my hands. There's a little bit of the Odyssey and then this next poem, because poets can't get enough of Greek myth. And there's some, there might be a bit of a comment on World War I and World War II, because I'm a nerd. Hero. She never knew one of us from another, so my brothers and I grew up fighting over our mother's mind. Like sun-colored suitors in a Greek myth, we were willing to do evil. We kept chocolate around our mouths. The last of her mother's lot, she cried at funerals, cried when she whipped me. She whipped me daily. I am most interested in people who declare gratitude for their childhood beatings. None of them took what my mother gave, waking us for school with sharp slaps to our bare thighs. That side of the family is darker. I should be grateful, so I will be. No one on earth knows how many abortions happened before a woman risked her freedom by giving that risk a name, by taking it to breast. I don't know why I am alive now, that I still cannot impress the woman who whipped me into being. I turned my mother into a grandmother. She thanks me by kissing my sons. Gratitude is black. Black as a hero returning from war to a country that banked on his death. Thank God, it can't get much darker than that. This next poem is built completely of phrases that I heard when I was a kid in the neighborhood where I grew up. Some of you will, these aren't just phrases I heard, some of you will recognize some of these phrases. Autobiography. Keep the line steady. Keep your back straight. Keep coming back for more. Keep fucking with me, Cletus. Keep putting your hands on me like that, and you'll always have a place to lay your head. Keep my waistline down. Keep your figure up. Keep your man happy. Keep a woman crazy. Keep your daddy off your mama, or next time I'm calling the police. Keep these nappy-headed children off my green, green grass. Keep talking smart if you want to. Keep looking at my man and I'll cut you a new eyelid. Keep looking me in my face when you tell your next lie. Keep on walking, I ain't talking to you anymore. Keep holding that last note. Keep singing while I get the splinter out. Keep singing for Jesus, baby, and everything will be all right. Keep me in your prayers. Keep us in your thoughts. Keep your eyes on the black one. He ain't got no sense. Keep your money in your pocket, Nelson. These hoes giving it away. Keep this one occupied. I'll get his wallet. Keep on living, honey, and you'll get old too. As a human being, there is the happiness you have and the happiness you deserve. They sit apart from each other the way you and your mother sat on opposite ends of the sofa after an ambulance came to take your father away. Some good doctor will stitch him up, and soon an aunt will arrive to drive your mother to the hospital, where she will settle next to him forever, as promised. She holds the arm of her seat as if she could fall, as if it is the only sturdy thing, and it is, since you've done what you always wanted. You fought your father and won, marred him. He'll have a scar he can see, all because of you. And your mother, the only woman you ever cried for, must tend to it as a bride tends to her vows, forsaking all others, no matter how sore the injury. No matter how sore the injury has left you, you sit understanding yourself as a human being, finally free now that nobody's got to love you. So we're coming to another poem that has one of those titles of a word that I don't think we realize here that people don't use everywhere. It's a word that means that person and everyone you associate with that person. And the word is nim. For those of you who don't know the word, I mean, we're in Shreveport, so I know y'all know the word nim. But there might be a couple people here who do not know this word, so let me put it in context for you. If you went to high school with somebody and you haven't seen them in a long time, but when you knew them before, you knew them and their family, when you see them again, you might say to them, "Hey, how you doing? How is your mama and them?" No. They said to say goodnight and not goodbye. Unplugged the TV when it rained. They hid money in mattresses, so to sleep on decisions. Some of their children were not their children. Some of their parents had no birth dates. They could sweat a cold out of you. They'd wake without an alarm telling them to. Even the short ones reached certain shelves. Even the skinny, cooked animals too quick to catch. And I don't care how ugly one of them arrived. That one got married to somebody fine. They fed families with change and wiped their kitchens clean. Then another century came. People like me forgot their names. For this next poem, you may want to know that Janis Joplin recorded the Gershwin standard Summertime with Big Brother and the Holding Company for their 1968 chart-topping album Cheap Thrills. She died of a heroin overdose in 1970. She was 27 years old. Michelangelo, is that you? Oh, hey. Track 5, Summertime, as performed by Janis Joplin. God's got his eye on me, but I ain't a sparrow. I'm more like a lawnmower. No, a chainsaw. Anything that might mangle each manicured lawn in Port Arthur, a place I wouldn't return to if the mayor offered me every ounce of oil my daddy cans at the refinery. My voice, I mean, ain't sweet. Nothing nice about it. It won't fly, even with Jesus watching. I don't believe in Jesus. The Baxter boys climbed a tree just to throw persimmons at me. The good and perfect gifts from above hit like lightning, leave bruises. So I lied. I believe, but I don't think God likes me. The girls in the locker room slapped dirty pads across my face. They called me bitch, but I never bit back. I ain't a dog. Chainsaw, I say. My voice hacks at you. I bet I tear my throat. I try so hard to sound jagged. I get high and say one thing so many times, like Willie Baker, who worked across the street. I saw some kids whip him with a belt while he repeated, please. School out, summertime, and the living lashed. Mama said I should be thankful that the town's worse to coloreds than they are to me, that I grow out of my acne. God must love Willie Baker, all that leather, and still a please that sounds like music. See, I wouldn't know a sparrow from a mockingbird. The band plays, I just belt out, please. This tune ain't half the blues. I should be thankful. I get high and moan like a lawnmower so nobody notices. I'm such an ugly girl. I'm such an ugly girl. I try to sing like a man. Boys call, boy. I turn my face to God. I pray. I wish I could pour oil on everything green in Port Arthur. It's Janis Joplin. I wrote this next poem after finding out about and being confounded by the very long list of people who have supposedly committed suicide while in police custody. It includes people like Jesus Huerta in North Carolina, who, after having been patted down, while handcuffed on the walk from the police cruiser to the building where he was to be booked, somehow managed to shoot himself in the back corner of his head. Or Victor White III here in Louisiana, who, after having been patted down while handcuffed, sitting in the back seat of a police cruiser, supposedly managed to shoot himself in the upper back. Or Sandra Bland in Texas, who after a day of fighting for her life, hang herself with a trash bag in a cell where there's video footage that has technical difficulty, and the stream of that video footage goes out at the moment that the coroner says that she must have hanged herself with a trash bag. Bullet points. I will not shoot myself in the head, and I will not shoot myself in the back, and I will not hang myself with a trash bag. And if I do, I promise you, I will not do it in a police car while handcuffed, or in the jail cell of a town I only know the name of, because I have to drive through it to get home. Yes, I may be at risk, but I promise you, I trust the maggots who live beneath the floorboards of my house to do what they must to any carcass, more than I trust an officer of the law of the land to shut my eyes like a man of God might, or to cover me with a sheet so clean my mother could have used it to tuck me in. When I kill me, I will do it the same way most Americans do. I promise you, cigarette smoke, or a piece of meat on which I choke, or so broke I freeze in one of these winters we keep calling worst. I promise if you hear of me dead anywhere near a cop, then that cop killed me. He took me from us and left my body, which is, no matter what we've been taught, greater than the settlement a city can pay a mother to stop crying, and more beautiful than the new bullet fished from the folds of my brain. This next poem deals with the Greek myth of Ganymede. If you don't know that myth, I think you'll know it by the time the poem's over. Ganymede. A man trades his son for horses. That's the version I prefer. I like the safety of it. No one at fault, everyone rewarded. God gets the boy. The boy becomes immortal. His father rides until grief sounds as good as the gallop of an animal born to carry those who patrol our inherited kingdom. When we look at myth this way, nobody bothers saying rape. I mean, don't you want God to want you? Don't you dream of someone with wings taking you up? And when the master comes for our children, he smells like the men who own stables in heaven, that far terrain between promise and apology. No one has to convince us. The people of my country believe we can't be hurt if we can be bought. Another feature of this book is a form that I invented called the Duplex. I really enjoyed talking about the Duplex with students today. I had the best time today talking with students who had the best questions, and that questions that really had me thinking and rethinking some of my own ideas. I really appreciate that. I'll read one of the duplexes for you now, but just so you know, the duplex is a form that is at once a hustle, a sonnet, and a blues poem, and I think you'll hear all three of those things come through as I read the poem. Duplex. I begin with love, hoping to end there. I don't want to leave a messy corpse. I don't want to leave a messy corpse full of medicines that turn in the sun. Some of my medicines turn in the sun. Some of us don't need hell to be good. Those who need most need hell to be good. What are the symptoms of your sickness? Here is one symptom of my sickness. Men who love me are men who miss me. Men who leave me are men who miss me. In the dream where I am an island. In the dream where I am an island, I grow green with hope. I'd like to end there. And I think I'll finish with a couple of love poems. Can I read you a love poem? Can I read you some love poems? It's hard to tell in the United States, you know, when you go abroad, everybody's all over each other. It's true, everybody's always holding hands and kissing and getting on your nerves. In the United States, everybody just looks like sister and brother. It's like, is y'all doing it or not? So you know, I'm saying that because, you know, it seems like I could be wrong, but it looks like there might be some couples out there. And so I figure I'll read some love poems because you never know what might help. You never know which night could be finally. So I should say, I'm really, you know, you don't hear poets say this a lot, but I'm really proud of this next poem, and I'll tell you why. I love poetry more than anything in the whole wide world. I love poetry so much. The only thing that I love more than poetry, there's only one thing I love more than poetry, and that's, the only thing I love more than poetry is cuddling. So this next poem is a poem about cuddling, and I'm so proud of it because it brings together my two favorite things in one place. I'm very excited about it. Stand. Peace on this planet, or guns glowing hot. We lay there together as if we were getting something done. It felt like planting a garden or planning a meal for a people who still need feeding. All that touching or barely touching, not saying much, not adding anything. The cushion of it, the skin and occasional sigh, all seemed like work worth mastering. I'm sure somebody died while we made love. Somebody killed, somebody black. I thought then of holding you as a political act. I may as well have held myself. We didn't stand for one thought, didn't do a damn thing. And though you left me, I'm glad we didn't. And I'll finish with a duplex. I'll finish with a duplex, which is the last poem in the book, the last duplex in the book. This is how you know poetry beats fiction every time. Because when you're a poet, you can read the last page of your book. You can't do that when you're a fiction writer. I'm going to read you a duplex. I told you those three forms that make the duplex happen. But this duplex is a little different because I added yet another form to it. This is not only a duplex, it is also a cento. And as you know, a cento is a poem that takes all of its lines from other poems. I'm generally rebellious though. So usually centos take all of their lines from other poems by other people. This particular cento takes all of its lines from all of the other duplexes in the book because I'm attracted to difficulty, which is a great thing to have. If you want to be any kind of an artist, if you want to be a poet in particular, it's nice if you have a natural attraction to difficulty. Not so good if you want to be in a relationship. Duplex. My last love drove a burgundy car, color of a rash, a symptom of sickness. We were the symptoms, the road, our sickness. None of our fights ended where they began. None of the beaten end where they begin. Any man in love can cause a messy corpse. But I didn't want to leave a messy corpse obliterated in some lilied field. Stench obliterating lilies of the field. The murderer, young and unreasonable. He was so young, so unreasonable, steadfast and awful, tall as my father. Steadfast and awful, my tall father was my first love. He drove a burgundy car. Thank y'all so much. It seems to me, okay.
We have some books for those that might want to purchase a book and get Jericho to sign it. We won't do a Q&A tonight because of the book signing. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Jericho is a very, very powerful reader of poetry. He's a great writer of poetry, and hopefully all of us leave with another level of understanding of the power of poetry. Jericho, thank you so very, very much. Students who are here for passport points, not that there are any, but first-year students can get them in their class with their professors, and anyone else who's not in a Trek 115 class, come forward and we can let you copy the QR code. Thank you all for coming tonight. Go in peace.